Hi everyone, Joe March here. Some of you guys know me as Psycho Sorcerer from back in the day. Some people will remember my old channel, The Grand Infinity, that used to exist. Things like that. I mostly just go by my real name now, but if you want to call me Psycho Sorcerer, I'm good with that. So last night, I was smoking hookah with Solomon AD, having a good time, and we got to talking about our own platforms, our videos, and things like that. And he made a rather interesting deal with me, and we decided that each time he makes a video, I'm going to make a video, and each time I make a video, he's going to make a video, and we'll see how long we can both keep this up. So that is a new thing, but more specifically, what am I going to make videos about? Because it's been a minute before I've put anything out. So Solomon says what he thinks I should do is go back over all my old materials and do like a Psycho Sorcerer 2.0 on it. And I know I've said for a long time now that I'm not going to be a teacher or do lessons or anything like that. And if I go over that old stuff, it can be perceived as lessons. I get that, because it is going to be information. But I am going to go at this in a different way. I'm not going to go at this like I did back in the old days when I was kind of culty, trying to be like, do my way and join my path and all that type of stuff. This is going to have a different format. So first, I'm going to go over what most people traditionally agree on about whatever the topic is. So if it's based on something from old grimoires or something, we're going to talk about what they believed in those days. Secondly, I'll go over my own experiences whenever I have either tried to work with this or if I haven't worked with it at all, because some of the topics I've talked about in the past are things that interested me but I'd never even gotten involved in. And then thirdly, I'll talk about what I think, what are my thoughts on this today. And none of this stuff should be taken as, let's go do this, everybody jump in and do this, because I really don't feel like magic and the occult is for everyone in the first place, and I don't mean that in a way of like, it should be kept to those who are able to control these fierce powers. No, I mean that not everybody needs it. It's not the path forward for everybody, but it is the path forward for some, so why not actually talk about this stuff like everybody wants anyway, and then we'll just get into that. So we've been jokingly calling it Psycho Sorcerer 2.0. You know, I might change the name of the site from Psycho Sorcerer Archive to Psycho Sorcerer 2.0 if this takes off. Or I might just do it right now, I don't know. You always know it's good when you start off talking about how you came up with the idea to do something while smoking hookah with your friend who's an occultist. That's just classic. Anyway, that's how most of the greats came up with stuff, so whatever. That's what we're doing right now. We're going to do a whole Psycho Sorcerer 2.0 arc. Let's see how it goes. I'm going to make a playlist called Psycho Sorcerer 2.0. We're going to see how long it goes for. And we're going to see if Solomon keeps up with me. If we can both one video for one video this thing like we were talking about. We definitely had a really fun time last night. It was really good to see him. But let's get on to a topic, because I don't want to just do a video that's like, I'm going to do some shit but then never do the shit. Let's start a topic. And of course we have to start with the simplest topic. What is occultism? And yes, we are switching into streamer mode because this is the mode I actually like better. And my computer is all set up with everything to the side, and I like the cameras to the side now anyway, so it's hard to do videos facing the camera like this anymore. But also, I like to have a palette over here that I can put stuff on, but you guys can still see me talking. I think it's just a cool way to do stuff. So streamer mode, that's how we're going to do these 2.0 videos. All right, let's start out with the what they say portion of this. We're going to talk about occult.
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 All right. This is how you're telling me I should think to... Okay, sure. Noun, supernatural, mystical, or magical beliefs, practices, or phenomena. As in, a secret society to study alchemy and the occult. Adjective, of involving or relating to supernatural, mystical, or magical powers or phenomena. As in, a follower of occult practices similar to voodoo. Or number 2, for medicine, of a disease or process not accompanied by readily discernible signs or symptoms. And lastly, we have our verb, cut off from view by interposing something, a wooden screen designed to occult the competitors. These are all great definitions. This is what you're going to get if you just look it up. I say that within our culture today, we do use the word to basically mean things that have to do with magical or mystical beliefs. Things that are paranormal. We do use it as a term when talking about groups of people to be people who engage in mystical or magical practices, or people who are into historical practices relating to what's generally ballpark put under this umbrella of occult. However, this is not a definition of occult that really jives with me based on what I'd like to talk about what the occult really is. So from my point of view, the occult means hidden. If someone was talking about occulted knowledge, they mean hidden knowledge. They mean knowledge that's not readily available from just looking into the physical world and perceiving with the natural senses. What do I mean by this? So for me, specifically, the way I look at this is the equivalent of if you go out and you look at a pond, for example, and you see waves rippling across the pond, and by watching these waves, you can feel a sort of way. You can feel a connection to everything else that's going on around you. You recognize that the wind and the weather and the temperature and everything that's going on is what's affecting the pool and causing these ripples. But at the same time, the pool is interacting with that weather and even the cooling of the air that's going on by the pool. There's all these things that are unseen going on that are interactions between the various forces that exist in our life. Now, you can take this in a spiritual way. You can take this in a physics way. The point being that these are all things that you don't directly perceive as, I don't see the wind. I don't see the interaction between the waves and the temperature. I don't necessarily perceive what's going on under the water, what fish or turtles or whatever are moving around and causing the water to move. But I can perceive it anyway through what some people would call like extrasensory perception, which to me is a fancy way of saying the part of your mind that isn't one of the original senses. It's your ability to observe phenomena, whether they be supernatural or natural, and then interpret from that what's going on, to imagine all the different pieces, and in so doing have a wholer picture of how things interact and how things really work. I think you can look at the occult as things that science teach a lot of us in grade school even. But the point is that it's hidden from the normal views. This is occult knowledge. Some people are going to disagree with me on this. They're going to say like, oh, occult knowledge is the hidden knowledge of secret societies, this, that, and the other. I don't believe that that's what the term was originally used for, and I don't believe that that's what even people in those societies use the term for. The occult is that which is hidden from the obvious, but it's there to be found. It's there to be understood. And yeah, if you couldn't tell before, this channel is going to get very philosophical on a lot of this stuff. So why am I bringing up what is the occult? I think because I'll be talking about the occult community, and I'll be talking about occultism and this and that, and some people will think that specifically means magic, like witchcraft, sorcerers, people involved in the magic community, people on TikTok who consider themselves baby witches. They are all involved in the occult. They are part of this occult community, but you don't need to be or do any of that to be involved in the occult. The occult is just the hidden. The occult is just that thing that happens whenever you observe and learn about something that's not directly seen, smelled, felt, heard, tasted. It's the formless, which does exist, which is a thing, which you can't deny. There are formless concepts that exist, which we use to better our lives. That stuff is the occult. So you don't have to be someone who dresses in robes and does sorcery and all that other stuff to be someone who learns about the occult. Of course, all that said, we're probably going to talk a lot more about the types of things that you'd learn as somebody who dresses in robes and uses candles and shit. So now we'll get into what's the difference between that and magic. And you'll notice magic is spelled with a K here. It doesn't have to be, but a lot of people spell it with a K to differentiate it from like stage magic, like performers do, stuff like that. So magic is more like a tool that people use to gain occult knowledge, or that they use in order to create a cause and effect relationship to better their chances at performing some kind of activity. Most people like to use Aleister Crowley's definition of magic, which is science and art that provokes change in conformity with the will. I think that this is a very simplistic way to explain it, and yet maybe that's the best way to keep it vague since so many people practice it so differently. Basically, from that point of view, anything that you do to cause that which you will to happen would be considered magic. So that includes a lot of what people would consider to be mundane things. Like if I really want some water right now and I reach over here and grab this glass and drink it, that's changing conformity with will. I have changed this water, it's gone through my system, etc. So I don't know that that definition is helpful because it really just describes more the results of the practice. People like to break magic up into multiple types. Some people will do cursing, where they affect someone else with their will. Some people will do the power of positive thinking, or like attracts like, or the power of attraction to try to bring things into their life that they need. Some people do white magic or banishings to try to get rid of bad vibes, bad spirits, things like that. There's so many different ways that people practice that I find breaking it up into types is actually kind of useless. I used to try to draw a line between types of magic, saying there was like white magic, which was to help, black magic, which was for the self, and baneful magic, which was causing bad things to happen. But I think all of that is a very simplistic way to look at it now. I think anytime that you instigate a change, you bring with it the possibility of both good and bad outcomes. I don't think you can look at these practices as good or bad anymore, but I definitely think the old me used to look at it as very positive and, hey, everybody should do this and nothing bad will come of it, and that is not my point of view on it now. Practicing magic is risky because it involves going into the trance state, and while in the trance state, your mind is open to suggestion a lot more than it maybe should be. So you have to be very, very careful if you're going to purposely go into trance state and then subject yourself to anything. You can absolutely fuck up your own mental state practicing magic. So unlike past Joe, who was like, everybody do this, I'm just going to say, I'm going to talk about it. If you're already someone who's going to do it, you are already going to do it. So you can just follow along and see if what I say matches your experiences. But if you're someone who hasn't done it before, I'm not recommending it to you. So don't come to me like, teach me, sensei, because that's not what we're doing. Magic is a process, it's a set of steps, but it's different for different cultures. So there's multiple different ways to do it, there's multiple different ways to experience it. The end result, in my opinion, always ends up being an interaction between the self and the subconscious mind. And through that interaction, you change the self. This can be extremely positive. We can make very positive changes to the self doing this. This can be extremely negative because we can think we know what we want and fuck ourselves up. The ultimate negative that it can reach is putting people into mental institutions and things like that. I have seen this happen to people. I am not joking. The ultimate good side of that is what most people would call enlightenment. People being able to understand the world and the environment and the reality in a way that they just didn't even feel or process before. So there's really good high possibilities of this and really bad low possibilities of this, and you really just have to decide for yourself if it's something you're going to do. Does magic work? Maybe. That's where I'm going with this. Maybe. That's going to piss a lot of people off on both sides. There are practices, considered magical practices, which I have used, which have worked. But I don't believe it's as simple as to say, this practice works, that practice doesn't. I think there's something to finding either something that resonates with you or that's culturally relevant to you in order to help spur that on. But I think it all really has to do with your connection to the subconscious and how deeply you can get into that part of yourself. I think these magical practices are all just tools to do that. So going forward, as I start talking about different magic stuff, different experiences, and all that type of stuff, just remember they're all just individual practices or elements that are considered some different parts of magic. They're not the whole of what magic is. They're not the only form of magic. Magic can be a very personal thing. Can you use magic to cause yourself to gain more money and wealth and things like that? I think so. But I waver on whether or not what you're really doing is psychological in nature. I believe it's very easy to rev yourself up while in the trance state into accepting things that you wouldn't normally accept. For example, you might be someone who's hesitant to believe in themselves and into a passion project. And then you go into the trance state, you, through the use of these magic techniques, convince yourself that your project is going to succeed, but then you go out and do the project. And you'll hear people claim like, yeah, the magic made the difference, but did it? Or was the project gonna succeed, you just didn't have the nerve to do it before? Either way, you still needed the magic in order to do it, but it's not a proof that the magic worked. By the same bet, you see people who will use magic, go out and do the project will fail, but they'll learn valuable lessons from the failure, and then turn around and do a new project with a new spell, and that one will work, and they'll say the first one was destined to fail because I needed to learn those lessons, and so magic worked yet again. But all of this is just looking back to the past and coming up with a reason that your magic really worked. What I would prefer to say is that magic does affect the outcome, but I don't believe that magic assures an outcome. So if you're someone who's interested in doing magic because you're interested in doing magic, then do magic. But if you're someone who's just trying to get some result, magic is not really the tool you need. Magic is going to spin you off in other directions, and it's going to change your life in weird-ass ways outside of your control. So if you're up for that, yeah, sure, go ahead and try. If you're like, I just really want to try magic, well, then do magic stuff. But if you're someone who's like, I'm poor, I need help, my family needs help, magic is not necessarily going to bring you that stuff. It's not like a fucking genie. It's not like the way it's presented in mass media. For people who are into magic and who have a spiritual connection to magic, it can be a very touching and emotional and personal part of their lives. So there's no way that I would ever be like, don't do it. But at the same time, anyone who's worth their salt in magic knows that the magic is not the end-all be-all of any of these practices. In fact, almost anybody who gets deep into the occult in any way, shape, or form will eventually find that the acquiring of things they need and that the trying to change other people's stuff usually falls by the wayside rather quickly, and you get wrapped up in the occult knowledge portion of things instead. When you start to see these things that are unseen before, and I don't mean like some weird-ass shit shows up, I mean like you start to interpret the world in this new lens where you can see how things interact with each other, how everything is connected. This is a life-changing event, and worth the process if it's something that you were already feeling drawn toward. There are plenty of people I've met who don't need this in order to get the same lessons. There's plenty of people who can go do a jog, get a high endorphin high, and just feel that connection right there. They don't need any magic. They don't need any occult knowledge. They can still get the connections. There are scientists that you can watch, like Neil deGrasse Tyson. I know he's a polarizing figure in this community, but if you listen to him talk about the cosmos, he has an almost religious, spiritual affinity for the cosmos. He is connected through his love of science. Not everything has to be our way, through magic, through the occult, through that, in order to get the occult secrets. What I'm saying is people can reach that enlightenment without these practices. So don't take any of this as an endorsement of the practices. Just take it as one person's experience with the practices. And that's my first video explaining all the videos and also explaining magic and the occult. Now, most of you guys already know all that stuff. That's cool. Are you guys here for this Psycho Sorcerer 2.0 thing? Does this sound like a good idea to you guys? Are you up for me doing more videos like this? Or is this just the ravings of a mad lunatic? Tell me in the comments down below. And thanks again. Till next time, safe travels.